Hello there everyone and welcome to the Creative Jumpstart class with the Sparkle and Shine release here at Altenew Academy. So today we're going to be creating this bright and vibrant card using some of my favourite things from the release. So to start with, I am going to be using the Into the Woodland stamp set, and I'm going to be using this beautiful floral cluster that you can see here. So I've added this onto a large acrylic block, and I'm going to be inking this up using some of my obsidian ink. Now you can use whichever black ink that you do find works best for you, but this is my favourite and go-to ink. I just love how bold it is, and also that it does stamp those beautiful details perfectly. So once I have that nicely stamped, I'm then going to move into the Woodland colouring stencil. So I'm going to be using stencil 4 and 5 for this one. I'm starting off with stencil 4, and I'm going to line up the base of this colour image onto the outline that we have there. I'm just going to add a little bit of tape just to keep that in place while I do my ink blending. So for this layer, I am going to be using the beautiful pink diamond. Now I do feel that I had a little bit of a darker pink already on my ink blending tool, so it may be a little bit darker than your pink diamond. But you could just add another layer of ink, or you could even alternatively just use a darker pink colour. It's completely up to you. So once I have that layer nicely blended, I'm then going to move on to the second layer. So I'm just shifting the stencil up. So that, again, this is stencil 4. And I'm just going to shift that into place just to make sure that all of those little images that we are going to ink through now are in place on the outline. So for this layer here, I am going to be using the Pinkalicious. Again, I'm using that same blending tool as before, so this is probably where that darker shade of pink came from before. And I'm just going to pop this through the stencil, making sure not to go over the stencil onto those beautiful leaves that we have there. So there are the flower petals now complete. I'm now going to move on to the flower centers. So I'm popping the flower center again on the stencil 4 into place onto these two flowers that we have on the right. And for this one, I'm going to be using chamomile, and I'm just going to push that through the open part of the stencil. Once I've done those two flowers, I'm just going to shift the stencil over and then do the third one. No need for the tape this time. Once that's done, I'm then going to take the second part of the stamen. So this is the one that's going to go around the edge of that flower center. For this one, I'm going to be using the Snapdragon ink, and these little images are again on that stencil 4. So all of the flower pieces for this beautiful flower cluster that we have are all on that 4 stencil. So once I've done that, you can see just how pretty these little flowers are. I'm then going to move on to the stencil 5, and I'm just going to pop the leaves into place. Again, adding a little bit of tape so it doesn't shift so much while I do my ink blending. So for this one, I am going to be using the Firefly ink, and I do have a small ink blending tool for this one as well. So I'm just going to be adding this in, trying to add more of that ink to the base of the leaves, just to give me a really beautiful kind of gradient effect on the leaves where it's darker at the base, and then we have less colour or more highlights at the tips of the leaves there. So once I have finished with that layer there, all I'm going to do is remove the tape and then shift that stencil around and then pop that into place over the ones that we've just done. Now this is going to add a darker colour for our leaves, so this is going to be the second layer of the stencil. For this one, I'm going to be using the Grassfield ink. So again, using that same blending tool that I used before, I'm just going to push that ink through the stencil, through the open parts, to create this really beautiful design. So once I have finished with that one, I've then completed the whole image using this simple colouring stencil. I just love how quick and easy it is. Once I've done that, I can then take the coordinating die from in the Woodland die set, just pop that around the image, then run that through my die cutting machine. I'm then going to move on to a note of thanks, and I'm going to be using this envelope die here. Now I have a piece of white wood grain paper, and I'm just going to cut that out of that there. I then wanted to add a little bit of colour to this. You can leave this white if you want to, but I am going to use some Dewdrops ink to kind of colour the flaps on this on the outside, and I'm then going to flip that over and then colour the inside flap this side. Alternatively, you could just use a piece of coloured cardstock as well. So I'm then going to kind of reinforce those little score lines that we have. Now the score lines are made when we run this through the die cutting machine, so don't worry too much about getting it in the wrong position. It will be there for you. And I'm just going to use my bone folder just to make those little score lines nice and crisp. So once that's done, I can then go ahead and put this together. I am using some quick dry strong glue for this. I'm just going to add some glue to that bottom flap first, and then I'm going to add it to the top ones too. I did add a bit too much glue, but as I was using that glue, I just kind of swished it away and it was okay in the end. When this dries, I do add a little bit of weight just to the top of it so it dries nice and flat. I'm then going to be taking the Illusion Diamonds stamp set. So this is the one that has the large background, and I'm going to add that into place onto a piece of 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 card. As this is a nice solid large stamp, I am going to prep it using my stamp conditioning eraser before I do ink this up with the beautiful Sunray ink. I just love how yellow and happy and sunny this colour is. So I'm just going to make sure the ink's all the way over that, and then I'm going to stamp that into place. Now this didn't stamp perfectly the first time. I did notice a couple of gaps. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of ink up where those gaps are again on my stamp, and then stamp that back into place until the gaps are then covered. So once they're covered, all I'm going to do then is I am actually going to chop this down. So I am taking 1/4 inch off all sides of that little panel before adding that onto a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 card base. And that's going to give me a beautiful little kind of white border around the outside edge. So for these flowers, I then decided I wanted to have some popping out of the envelope and some on top. So all I've done is I've cut one of the flowers away and just fussy cut around the outside edge. Once that's done, I'm going to add some foam tape, pop those flowers into the little envelope that we have there, and then pop the little third flower that we fussy cut off the other ones onto the top, so it looks like it's kind of spilling out. To add a little bit of dimension here, I am adding some foam tape to the top of the envelope flap, so that's going to kind of sit forward, and then I'm then going to add some super sticky tape to the bottom part of the envelope, and that's going to sit nice and flat onto the card. So it's going to kind of look like the envelope's opening and spilling all of those flowers out. Once that's done, I'm then going to take one of the sentiments from the Illusion Diamond stamp set. I'm going to stamp that onto some white cardstock using some obsidian ink, and then I'm just going to use my little guillotine just to kind of trim this up so it has an even look on both sides of the sentiments. So once that's done, again, a little bit more foam tape for, more dimension on this card. Just going to add the foam tape behind that little sentiment there, and then pop that into place where I want it to be on the card. So here is the card complete. I really do hope that you like this card as much as I do, and that you've enjoyed the video as well. If you do create a card that was inspired by this, it'd be great if you do share, because we'd love to see. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and we'll see you again really, really soon. Bye-bye.